Today we are going to talk about movies. At work, during lunch, a lot of the times I will retell movies. I don't know how this started, it just did. And apparently my coworkers like it, so video for you. Fried green tomatoes. I haven't actually watched this movie in a while, but I'm going to retell it to you now. Open, and there is a car with Kathy Bates in it and her husband. Then we go to a nursing home. Kathy Bates is going to visit her husband, Ed's mother, someone, aunt, doesn't matter. But Kathy Bates has to wait in the waiting room. And who should enter? The one and only Jessica Tandy. She just starts talking to Kathy Bates and telling her life story. And go back in time to when Iggy was a young girl. And we talk about Iggy's big brother, Buddy, and Chris O'Donnell, swoon. And after the wedding, which isn't really important, we meet Ruth, played by Mary Louise Parker. No, what is it? Doesn't matter. They're walking by the water, Buddy and Iggy and Ruth. And Buddy tells a story about ducks, and there was a lake here once, but the ducks sat in the lake and it froze and they flew away with the lake. There's a montage here or something, but we were all hanging out by the train tracks. I don't remember why. Ruth is wearing a Sunday hat because she's a lady and it's a long time ago. Her hat blows off in the breeze and it blows onto the train tracks. Well, Buddy is a gentleman, so he hops down and he swings on a rope and he's going to get her hat, and he picks up the hat and he does a little wave, and Iggy's up there and Ruth is up there, and then here's a train coming and there's a whistle. His shoe is stuck in the train tracks. He can't get it out. Iggy and Ruth are both like, "Oh my, what's happening? What's happening?" And then they're screaming and Buddy dies. Bates is crying because it's sad. This is the beginning of the movie. Mary Stuart Masterson. She is Iggy, grown up, like teenager vibe, and her mother is worried about her. And who is back in town but Ruth Jameson, Mary Louise Parker. Did I already say Mary Louise Parker? We see Ruth trying to befriend Iggy. She tries to get Iggy to go to church. She tries to get Iggy to do this, that, and the other. And Iggy doesn't want to because she's stubborn and she wears pants like a man. I don't remember exactly what happens, but they become friends. They teach Ruth to drink, and they teach Ruth to play poker, and they just have a big old time. And she and Iggy are swimming, and you find out, oh, Ruth's getting married. And that's the first time you have this sort of, oh, Iggy's a little bit in love with Ruth. But Ruth is getting married. And oh my gosh, I forgot the most important part of the movie. Iggy says, "Do you want some honey?" And Ruth says, "Well, sure." And then Iggy, Masterson, walks over to this big beehive in a tree, and she just walks like la-di-da-di-da. She picks up a honeycomb, puts it in a jar, and she starts walking back. And of course she's got bees all over her, crawling everywhere, and she's just walking, da-da-da-da, no big deal. And Ruth is horrified, and she's like, "Oh my gosh." Mary Stuart Masterson's like, "I never get stung, honest." And then Ruth says, "You're just a bee charmer, Iggy Threadgood." Okay, so that's important. She's basically mad at Ruth for getting married, and they don't talk for a while. Iggy shows up. Ruth comes to the door, but she won't open it. She's like doing this weird half phantom thing in the door. She's like, hey, Iggy, how are you? She turns her head, and Ruth's got a black eye. And Iggy's like, "Your husband gave you a black eye. I'm going to kill him." And let's see what happens next. Iggy gets a letter from Ruth. Basically says, "Come get me." So they move Ruth out of her house, but Frank comes, and Frank's like, "You're not moving out." And Iggy jumps on his back because, Mary Stuart Masterson's a little fireball, and she's like, leave her alone, I'm going to kill you. Take Ruth, and they leave with Ruth. Turns out Ruth is pregnant. Ooh. Then we go back to Kathy Bates, and at some point we hear Iggy say to Wanda, oh my gosh, I forgot another part. Kathy Bates is being inspired by these stories, and she's grocery shopping. She's trying to find a parking spot, and this person's finally coming out, and she's about to pull into the spot when these little witches in a Jeep come in, and they take her spot, and she's like, "Ladies, that was my spot." And these girls say, "Face it, lady, we're younger and faster." And then they go into the grocery store. Would you ever say that to a stranger? I don't know who says that, but it was the early 90s. And Kathy Bates gets really mad, and there's a close-up of her hands on the wheel, and she says, "To Wanda." And then she starts to ram into the back of these girls' car. Oh, it wasn't a Jeep, it was a Beetle. And girls come out and they have their big 90s hair, and they're like, "What?" And Kathy Bates says, "Face it, girls, I'm older and I have more insurance." So then she ends up going back for Jessica Tandy story time. Find out that Ruth and Iggy are now friends. And are they lovers? I don't know. So life is going pretty well until one night Frank shows up and he wants to take the baby. We know somebody hits him on the head with a frying pan, and then his truck disappears. Oh my gosh, I left out the biggest part of the story. Doesn't matter. All you need to know is that the whole time there's been this police officer and he's been looking for Frank. And they say, "Oh, we don't know where he is, but you want some barbecue?" And that's what happens. There's a bunch of rain and they pull up Frank's truck out of the river in this little town. Now they're going to file charges against Iggy for murder because everybody thinks Iggy did it. Even Ruth thinks Iggy did it. And then the priest, who hates Iggy and has hated her since she was a kid, gets up on the stand and lies. He lies and he says she didn't do it. So then the judge's like, there's no body, there's no evidence, there's no case. Then time passes. Ruth gets cancer because, of course. The story comes back with the birds, the ducks on the lake, and Iggy is telling Ruth the story on her deathbed. And then Ruth dies, and it's very sad, and everybody's sad, and everybody's crying. Oh, wait, I kind of skipped ahead. By the way, at this point, Kathy Bates is doing fantastic. And she's starting like a new diet and starting to look better, and she sells Mary Kay Cosmetics, and she loves her life. Bates comes in one day. This is when she tells Kathy Bates who really killed Frank. It wasn't Iggy. Iggy did not kill Frank. What was that character's name? Played by Cicely Tyson. I can't remember what her name was. It doesn't matter. She killed Frank. She hit him with a frying pan, and he died. You know, she couldn't get rid of that body on her own. And so Iggy comes up with a plan. She says, we are going to barbecue his body. And they fed Frank's body to everybody who came into their cafe. Gross. Nobody ever found out. No one ever found out. So Kathy Bates goes to the nursing home basically to say, hey, come move in with me because I love you and you're great. And she gets there and she walks into the room and nobody's in there except this nurse who's ripping these things off the wall that Miss Threadgood put on the wall. And then Kathy Bates has this beautiful breakdown scene where she's like putting the roses back on the wall and she's like, she was my friend and these were her things. The nurse who knows her comes up and she says, oh, it's not Miss Threadgood who's dead, it's Mrs. Otis. We don't really know who Miss Otis is, but she did. Mrs. Threadgood has gone back to her house, but her house has been condemned, which we find out earlier in the movie. She's like, oh no, she has nowhere to live. And there's sweet Jessica Tandy just sitting on her suitcase in front of this house, been torn down or something. And Kathy Bates says, don't worry, honey, I know your house is gone, but you can come live with me because I love you. See honey, a jar of it, on a tombstone in the graveyard. And Jessica Tandy gives this kind of like knowing, oh, I don't know. And Kathy Bates goes to look at it and she opens the card that's with the honey and it says something from the bee charmer. And Kathy Bates goes, Iggy? Is Iggy alive? And Mrs. Threadgood says, oh, she's around now and again. Then the music comes in and it's beautiful and the two ladies go to live happily ever after. Great movie. Lots of tears. You should watch it. Fried green tomatoes.